Hakuna.
Hizi vitu zinapigwa mpaka ujui zinapigiwa wapi mpaka inafikia hata wewe ukae. Twende hivyo.
Songa Dennis.
Toka hapo wewe nawe.
Polisi kitole mbele.
Songa faster. songa songa. Bro.
Utapiga hivi ama utapiga hivi? Kama wewe ni mjaya mkubwa ndio wako kuja usikubwa. Ongea hivyo tu. Ongea tu hivyo. Huko madai.
Kila mtu anaenda huko. Tulia kwanza. Usitoke yani short rudi nao pole pole. Rudi na short pole pole. Nazunguka. Ndio sasa tunazunguka. Kama na wenzetu. Kama na moja mwingine wa kwanza.
A very good afternoon to you. We are coming to you live from our communication center here at the Royal Media Services Citizen TV. The pictures that are on your screens are of Nairobi, and that is the CBD right now. The pictures that you're seeing there are of the Central Business District. This on the third week of anti-government protests, and the day earlier today started with a perceived state of calm. That is in Nairobi CBD, but what we've seen as the day progresses is a contingent. over the country's economic situation, the country's economic growth, which many feel has failed to keep up with population growth, and the Generation Z now inviting everybody in the country that cares about the state of affairs, particularly the economic state of affairs, to join them and marshal their support and show up in solidarity with their cause. So those are the pictures that we are getting from different parts of the country. Let's listen in.
Unless pengine tuzime kwa sababu imekuwa tu sawa tangu asubuhi. Kenyatta Avenue. Niko back two. Yes. Backpack. Kaji? Vipi?
Those are streets from the Central Business District, where, as you can see, Kenyans are back on the streets today, continuing with their protests against the Finance Bill 2024, albeit the fact that the president changed his stance on this. And these are the Gen Zs who continue to express their disappointment and unhappiness with President William Ruto's leadership. They have continued to sustain the protests today, and what you can see there are security officers keeping them at bay. And this albeit the fact that President Ruto on Sunday night assured that there would be dialogue that would be held between him and the Gen Zs over the demonstrations that have been happening, and listening really to what it is that they have to say about the current state of the nation. Police are there on the streets, keeping these protesters at bay, even as we continue to see scenes reminiscent of what is happening in Nairobi and other parts of the country. We have seen Mombasa County, we have seen Machakos County, we have seen Kisumu and Eldoret, where scenes that are a replica of what is currently happening here in Nairobi CBD continue to be seen. And according to protesters, they feel that there is yet more that that remains to be done as regards the state of affairs in the country, the economic growth, the unemployment levels in the country. Even as the government continues to say that Kenya is at high risk of debt distress, Kenyans continue to express their displeasure on the streets in various parts of the country with the hashtag Occupy CBD coming before the protest that we're seeing today being Tuesday. A contingent of security officers also cordoning roads leading to State House, forcing motorists to use alternative routes. And these protests are now entering their third week. The protests being sparked off initially by the Finance Bill 2024, which the National Assembly passed in June. However, President Ruto did bow to increasing pressure and withdrew the bill. Still, the Gen Zs and indeed everybody else that has joined them in marshalling support, all Kenyans from all walks and sizes and ages now joining the clarion call for the government to listen to their concerns. While the unrest may have been sparked by the finance bill, many say that frustrations have continued to grow over the lack of trust and accountability that they feel this government has shown. So we are continuing to follow up on exactly what is happening, even 2 days after a media roundtable at State House Sunday night, where the president agreed to Gen Z's demands that the only environment they would be comfortable discussing their issues was on X, on the X platform. They have continued to take to the streets. Of course, this invite for dialogue from the president and the Gen Z's on platform X has attracted reactions from the Gen Z. Some have welcomed it, while others have expressed reservations over the same. And that is what we are seeing with them still taking to the streets and continue to air displeasure. They continue to take to the streets, this being Tuesday and this being exactly 3 weeks after they started these protests. We continue to see them back on the streets in protests that began with the rejection of the finance bill. The youth say they are unhappy with President William Ruto's leadership and vow to continue with the demos on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the pictures on your screens right now are from Waiyaki Way. Let's cross over to the CBD and see what is happening in the Central Business District. There again, heavy police presence and police continuing to keep protesters at bay. Businesses have been affected in parts of the city, as well as public service transport, public service vehicles. Most of them continue to be parked at their bays. Most people have stayed away from the Central Business District today. Apart from the protesters, businesses remaining closed. And of course, a lot of roads blocked today as the Gen Zs continued to make true their word that they would take to the streets once again. Today they have resumed their Tuesday demonstrations, and we continue to monitor what is happening in parts of the country. Kenyans have also raised concerns over excessive use of force by police officers, as well as recent abductions. And of course, many Kenyans remain under custody. Those who picketed and were seen to have engaged in destruction of public property remain in police custody. And these are some of the concerns that the protesters have raised, saying that some of the abductions are in fact unconstitutional, that most persons that remain in custody were not booked in police stations and cannot be accounted for or found. This is what is happening. We have not seen any pockets of the KDF after President William Ruto assured protesters that KDF will not be on the streets if the protests are kept peaceful. We're still keeping an eye on that because it was his assurance that that would not happen for as long as the protesters kept their demonstrations peaceful. to Waiyaki Way and see the situation there. Waiyaki Way is right here in Nairobi County, and it is the central point that leads towards Westlands, which also leads to Nairobi Central Business District. It is also the central point that leads to Kangemi, as well as Nakuru County, going towards, of course, other parts of the country, such as Kisumu as well. And this is the central point where we're seeing the roads being cordoned off with protesters taking to that very usually busy highway. And that means that motorists are unable to access that particular road as protesters take to the streets and security officers continue to keep them at bay. Pictures on your screens there are of the Gen Z who have been on the streets protesting for the past 3 weeks, who have vowed to continue their demonstrations, their protests initially aimed at opposing the controversial Finance Bill 2024, which has since been withdrawn by President William Ruto. Initially, those protests were largely peaceful, but have later turned chaotic after the youth gained access to Parliament last Tuesday. There has been no end in sight even after that, with the youth and everybody or anybody who chooses to marshal their support towards this movement continues to join them on the streets, this being a culture that has become a Tuesday and Thursday demonstration culture. While they achieved their goal of having the bill withdrawn altogether, the Gen Z continue to insist that they want several changes in the way things are done in the country. And of course, they continue to make this very evident by continuing their concerted efforts and move towards protesting every other Tuesday and Thursday. And through their numerous online platforms, they continue to vow to continue their picketing against what they see and describe as rampant corruption, poor governance, and unfulfilled promises by the government of the day. The hashtag being Occupy CBD Tuesday, they called on everyone to come out and join the nationwide strikes. We've brought you pictures from different parts of the country, Machakos County, Mombasa County, and other parts of the country. Basically, you know, Kenyans from all walks of life, from different ages, taking to the streets, where they continue to protest amid an olive branch extended to them by President William Ruto, who has since invited them for a dialogue to address their issues. Now, this dialogue is supposed to take place this coming Thursday, but from the look of things, it has done little to stop the concerted efforts of the Gen Zs and other Kenyans from different walks of life to take to the streets and protest. Heavy security presence in parts of the central business district as police keep protesters at bay. And this, of course, coming in the wake of youth who many have described as having no known leader, protesters who insist that they are partyless, protesters who insist that they are tribeless as well, but who are coming together with one common voice, which is the state of the nation and their displeasure at how the current government is running affairs in the country. The Gen Z have also decried the deaths of protesters who they say met their death under the wrath of police officers during the protests. They have also decried what they describe as illegal arrests. We've also seen Kenyans living in other parts of the world, Kenyans in diaspora, Washington, D.C., over the weekend, rejecting President Ruto's plans to engage the public through the National Multisectoral Forum. There's also been demands from diaspora for the immediate release of all those arrested during the nationwide protests. And as the Gen Z continue to take to the streets, the Nairobi business community also raising concerns over lootings and over their businesses remaining closed on two very critical weekdays and business days for them. They say they have suffered losses over the past 2 weeks of protests against the finance bill. The school calendar also seemingly affected, with most private schools remaining closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And now we are going to be crossing over to listen to the sentiments of Raila Odinga, who is speaking. As of now, let's listen into that. But before that, again, just to continue with our coverage, we'll be bringing you live updates from different parts of the country. Let's listen into what Azimio leader Raila Odinga has to say.
The Central Committee of the party has this morning held a meeting to deliberate on the ongoing crisis in Kenya. This meeting is happening at a most difficult time for our country, given all that has happened in the last few weeks. We are acutely aware that many families are still in mourning, having lost their loved ones, with civil society groups estimating that young Kenyans fell to the regime bullets in the course of the street protests. Many of these families are yet to bury these victims. On behalf of the entire ODM party, the Central Committee extends its deepest condolences to all those who have lost their loved ones and pray that God will comfort them in this time of tragedy. We also know that many were injured and some are still in hospital. We wish all of them quick recovery. We are in awe of the Kenyan youth who, through their unity of purpose, have stood with their fallen colleagues and raised of money and held incommunicado for days. As we speak, the reports are that upwards of 50 individuals have been illegally abducted and their whereabouts unknown. To make it worse, it is clear that no one in government is ready to take responsibility, to render an apology, or to make amends. The head of state himself has tried to distance his regime from these killings, injuries, and abductions, instead conjuring up theories when everyone can see the blood on his hands. We have the most callous, insensitive, and obtuse regime in the history of Kenya. It is no wonder that chants of Ruto must go are ringing out all across our land. Government must never abdicate its responsibility to protect life and the property of its citizens. And if it does, as Ruto has done, it deserves to go. As a party that was founded on the tenets of social justice, we shall walk the journey of bringing about justice and accountability for all of the regime's crimes since they took power. We stand with the people in their quest to liberate themselves politically, socially, and economically. Kenyans asked us to stand with them against the punitive tax proposals in the finance bill, and we did. Of the 115 members of the National Assembly who stood with the people and voted against the bill on the floor, 73 were in fact members of ODM. We applaud these great patriots and thank them for being true representatives of the people. As a party, we celebrate you for being on the right side of history, and the party has charged the Honorable Opio Andai and the whip, Junet Mohammed, to convey this message to each individual member who stood with the people of Kenya. Sadly, a few of our members went against the wishes of the people and sided with the oppressor, and we will speak to the consequences shortly. In light of this state of affairs, the meeting has resolved as follows. Number one, that it is time for all of us in the political leadership to begin to listen. Listen to what the people are saying and not to our own voices. The young people have spoken in plain language that should be clear to everyone. Let's not be vague. Let's just do what the young people are telling the government to do. Number two, we consider this to be Kenya's last best chance. The youth have given our country our last best chance. We either seize it and swim with it by implementing all their demands, or we ignore it and sink the country altogether. Number three, that the Kenya Kwanza regime must take full responsibility for all the deaths, injuries, and destruction of property arising from the violent suppression of peaceful protests. The president must publicly direct his security organs to forthwith seize the ongoing abductions, an exercise that we believe is being undertaken with his full approval and the approval of the state. He must account for and order the release of all detainees abducted by these security agencies. Number four, that the Independent Police Oversight Authority must expedite investigations into all these incidents, including allegations of mass murder by police in Githurai and in Rongai. We were shocked to watch the president claim on live television that only one life was lost. It tells you how out of touch with reality he is. Number five, that in our view, what happened on the 25th of June 2024 amounted to a vote of no confidence in the Ruto regime. It is clear that this fact is totally lost on Ruto. It is reflected in his petulant proposals on how we manage our economy following the rejection of his tax bill. Instead of focusing on cutting wastage, opulence, and corruption in his regime, he is hitting back at the Kenyan people with threats to cut funding for the judiciary and the county governments. 6, that the ODM party will support credible austerity measures in the executive and in parliament. These two institutions have been expressly indicted by the people as citadels of largesse and wastage, with fresh memory of the invasion of parliament and standing threats for occupation of the executive seat of power. These two institutions must have an honest introspection on their contribution to our current predicament and take measures to lessen the taxpayers' burden. As a party funded by taxpayers ourselves, we will also be taking steps to scale down on our presence across the country and some of our activities to reflect this new economic reality. Lastly, that ODM shall initiate and lead recall processes in the following constituencies in light of the current office holders' repeated violation of their sacred oath and the wishes of their electorate. Number 1, Game constituency. Number 2, Bondo constituency. Number 3, Navaholo constituency. Number 4, Kajiado Central. Number 5, Ikolomani. And lastly, Suba South in Homa Bay. Thank you. That is the end of the statement.
Yeah, we do.
Eric? Yes, sorry.
And during this time of crisis, when Kenya asked the Parliament, National Assembly, has to go for a recess during this period. What actually transpired? Because when that decision was being made, there was a blackout in Parliament in terms of coverage. The media was not allowed to cover that session.
Kirui, can I first take questions that are related to the statement we've read? Brad?
Yeah, I'm very much enough to understand that. Now, you say that you support the demands by the youth. One among the demands is the resignation of President Ruto. Do you support that?
The youth have spoken in clear and certain terms. Let us not pretend like we don't hear what they are saying. You have heard it, we have heard it, Ruto has heard it.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah, the second question was that the kind of environment that the president is enabling right now, the suppression through police, do you think it supports his calls for dialogue?
No, because nobody believes what the president is saying. His actions and words are totally different. And what we have called for in our statement, first of all, is he must publicly speak to his police, publicly, and tell them that he knows what they are doing and Kenyans have asked that he stop. So if he doesn't stop that, really, there is really nothing to discuss. Many of the people he's looking for to have a discussion with are actually in custody. Let's look.
You're like you have listed some 5 constituencies that you are going to initiate the recall to.
6. Yes.
I know they are not the only ones who voted yes from the party. How did you arrive at the 5? And then secondly,
yes, the criteria was very simple. In our statement, we have said repeat offenders. Those who voted against the wishes of the people in 2023 and again did it in 2024 because there are a few who met their Damascus moments this year.
There are some who voted no.
Yes, this is the criteria we have applied the look, and we want to be able to focus on these 6 as a lesson to all the others. Is there any other question? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Asanteni sana.